The Exodus. Journey from slavery to freedom. The story of the Exodus is one of the most enduring and enigmatic tales in human history. It is a story whispered in deserts, sung in synagogues, preached in churches, and chanted in countless gatherings across millennia. But what makes it so compelling? Is it merely a tale of ancient faith, or is it a coded record of real events that shaped civilizations? Let us walk together through this journey, step by step, into the dust of Egypt, through the waters of the Red Sea and across the barren wilderness, to discover why the Exodus still captures imaginations thousands of years later. Slaves beneath the Pharaoh's shadow. Picture the grandeur of ancient Egypt, towering pyramids, golden temples, statues carved into cliffs. Yet behind this splendor lay shadows filled with sweat, toil, and broken backs. According to the biblical narrative, the Israelites lived under the yoke of Pharaoh's oppression. Forced into hard labor, they built monuments that glorified kings who thought themselves gods. But here lies the first mystery. Were the Israelites truly slaves in Egypt, or is this a myth woven centuries later? Archaeologists debate this fiercely. Some argue the story is symbolic, others suggest small bands of Semitic people did live in Egypt and were absorbed into its laboring masses. Yet whether myth or memory, the narrative begins with a timeless cry: "Let my people go." Moses, reluctant hero or legendary construct. Into this world steps Moses, a man who, by all accounts, should not have lived. A child hidden in a basket among the reeds of the Nile, he was plucked from death and raised in Pharaoh's palace. Here, we find a fascinating paradox. A Hebrew child educated as an Egyptian prince, groomed to inherit the very power that oppressed his own kin. But destiny turned sharply. Moses fled into exile, only to return as a prophet of rebellion. What makes his figure so intriguing is not merely his leadership, but his reluctance. Unlike mythical heroes who leap into battle, Moses stammers, doubts, and even argues with God. He is profoundly human, and perhaps that is why his story resonates across cultures. The plagues, natural disaster or divine intervention. Then came the plagues, blood-red waters, swarms of locusts, darkness blanketing the land, and death stalking the firstborn. To the faithful, these were divine acts of liberation. To historians and scientists, they might have been natural catastrophes: a volcanic eruption darkening skies, a red algal bloom poisoning the Nile, locust swarms triggered by climatic shifts. Yet, whether miracle or nature, the psychological effect was undeniable. Egypt, once unshakable, was brought to its knees. Pharaoh, portrayed as both stubborn tyrant and tragic figure, finally yielded, letting the Israelites go. But freedom is never simple. The hardest road was only beginning. The Red Sea mystery. This is the moment etched forever in cultural memory. The parting of the Red Sea. Charlton Heston's staff raised high, waters towering like walls. But what really happened? Some scholars suggest the Red Sea might have been the Reed Sea, a shallow marshland where strong winds could temporarily push back waters. Others propose a tidal phenomenon, and yet the image of a people walking dry-shod between walls of water has become one of the most enduring symbols of deliverance. And think of the drama: an enslaved people, with Pharaoh's chariots thundering behind, staring death in the face, until the impossible occurs. It is not just history, it is theater on a cosmic scale. The wilderness test: freedom is harder than slavery. Here lies a paradox. Once free, the Israelites struggled with freedom. Hunger, thirst, rebellion, doubt. These mark the wilderness years. For historians, this wilderness wandering reflects something deeper: the painful transition from a people defined by oppression to a people bound by law, covenant, and identity. The giving of the Ten Commandments at Mount Sinai was not merely a religious event. It was, in essence, the birth of a constitution. Out of chaos came order. Out of slavery came a moral code that still shapes much of the modern world. Exodus as a universal story. Now step back. Why does this story matter beyond its ancient setting? Because Exodus is not just Israel's story, it is humanity's story. Every age, every nation has seen in it a mirror. For African American slaves, the Exodus became the anthem of their struggle. Go down, Moses. For the Puritans crossing the Atlantic, America was their promised land. For South African freedom fighters under apartheid, Moses was not a distant prophet, but a living symbol of resistance. Exodus is the ultimate narrative of hope, that no empire, however mighty, can crush the human spirit forever. History or legend? But here's the pressing question. Did the Exodus actually happen? Archaeologists have yet to uncover direct evidence of hundreds of thousands of Israelites leaving Egypt en masse. No broken chariots in the seabed, no clear encampments in the Sinai. Some argue the numbers were smaller, perhaps a few clans who later grew into a nation. Others suggest the story is more theological than historical, crafted centuries later during exile to give the people identity and purpose. And yet, sometimes absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. In the shifting sands of history, whole cities vanish, empires crumble, and bones turn to dust. What remains is the story, and stories themselves can shape nations as powerfully as any sword. Exodus as a revolution of ideas. Even if the Exodus cannot be pinned neatly on a timeline, its revolutionary message is undeniable. It introduced something radical into human thought. That the oppressed could defy the mighty, that the powerless could claim divine justice, that history bends toward liberation. Egypt may have had gold, armies, and gods carved in stone, but Israel carried something stronger into the desert, an idea. And ideas, once unleashed, can outlast empires. Why we still walk the Exodus road. So as we stand today, thousands of years later, why do we still speak of the Exodus? Because it asks questions that never die. What does it mean to be free? How do you build a community out of suffering? Can law and morality grow from the ashes of oppression? And most hauntingly, are we still wandering in the wilderness, waiting for our promised lands? The Exodus is history, myth, theology, and revolution all in one. It is the cry of slaves, the defiance of prophets, the terror of empires, and the dream of freedom. And perhaps that is why this story endures. Not because it answers every question, but because it asks the ones that matter most.